Damn, Murphy done got his ass whipped, y'all. That was a really good ending to what I think was a very, very kind of lackluster Raw tonight, even though storyline-wise, we saw a few things happen. Most people were not too kind to the show online. I think it finished very strong with the Dominic Mysterio and Buddy Murphy match, and a great just kind of feel-good moment there for the Mysterio family, watching them just whip the hell out of Buddy Murphy. That was really fun to watch. Raw just went off the air. Here I am. 7 past the hour. Hopefully you guys are here and can hear me.
Very kind of.
Yeah, we're looking good. All right, what's up? I think this is the third night in a row of streaming here on the channel. So wasn't sure what we're going to have to talk about tonight. It's a holiday Raw. Today is Labor Day. Happy Labor Day to everyone, by the way. I hope you guys had a great day off if you were off or just enjoyed your holiday in general. And normally when we have these type of shows, Memorial Days, Labor Days, anything that falls on a Monday, generally we don't see like a groundbreaking or earth-shattering Raw. So that was kind of the case here tonight, but we did have a couple things happen, including a big heel turn and a big return and, a couple other things here and there. So we should be able to make do tonight and turn what was kind of a lackluster show into a pretty fun live stream. And like I said, Raw finished strong with the Mysterio stuff. I liked it a lot. Good to see you in here, Cody and Real American, Big Dog, Sonic, and Zane, and David, Tim, Mr. E. Yes, smash that thumbs up button. I appreciate it if you would do that for me. Willie, Naveed, Barry is here in the house. We got Zane, Joshua, Homie Cow, Ryan Rhoda, Madeline, the Ungovernable, Ronnie, Chris, Jesse, Arnez. Good to see you guys. So yeah, what'd you guys think of the show? Hit me with your grades. Do a 1 through 10 or do a letter grade, something like that. I would say based on the strength of the main event and the strong finish, I'll go C+ on this one, but I didn't think it was really that great of a show, even though we did finally get the Cedric Alexander heel turn and a couple of other things happen. It just, it felt a little bit lackluster, and it's really annoying when you have a roster, you have a company here that's got hundreds of wrestlers on the roster, all good ones, and yet for some reason, every week on Raw, literally every match that we see, now, we've already seen the previous week and the week before and the week before and the week before. It's just like this never-ending nonsense, and luckily, hopefully, this is going to start wrapping up issues and feuds like the Hurt Business and Apollo and all them, but you can trace their feud and their matches on Raw. They haven't worked with anybody else but each other since like June. That's like ridiculous, man. So enough's enough. Move some shit on or just do something different and give us something to look at, because a lot of times these Monday Night Raws, in most cases, can feel exactly like the ones the week before, and hell, you could have even missed some of these shows and not really missed anything and could have caught up pretty easily. So, based on a couple of things there, the Cedric stuff, I want to talk about the tag team situation as well, the cool finish to the main event, and some possibilities for McIntyre and Orton. Not a ton to get into here, but, whatevs. A lot of you guys were saying it was all right. I had a couple people on Twitter saying that they didn't really mind the show, so maybe I'm being hard on it. I don't know. Just didn't feel like it was all that great. I think this is our first... Also, I think it's our first Retribution interview tonight. Or not interview, but promo. There was actually some speaking going on there. And they did kind of reveal a couple of things. And one of them was that they kind of made you believe or made it sound as if they are all released talent. Which to me is also weird, because they said, I forgot what he said now, but he said something along the lines of WWE cast us out into the world and forced us to fend for ourselves in an unfair world or whatever. Made it sound like they were all released talent. But what's going to happen then if you start revealing members and it turns out to be Dominic Dijakovic and Mia Yim and anybody else that people have recognized under the masks? They weren't released. They weren't cast aside. They weren't kicked to the curb. Dominic was featured, heavily on TV until recently. Mia Yim still is. And people like that, I don't know, if it's all going to make sense or not. But if it does turn out to be a bunch of people that they have released in the past, they're going to need to bring in a lot of new people. So who was released in the last chunk of releases that haven't signed with AEW? Did they just release AOP in kayfabe maybe so they can come back and show up and be in Retribution or something like that? I don't know. Don't know what to expect there, but we'll talk about that too. I'm sure you guys will have all sorts of awesome ideas and, shit like that. And we'll talk about it. Let me get my notes pulled up here so in the right spot so I can read them, and we'll start talking about Raw. We'll go through. I'll pretty much do this like a match-by-match type of review here because it started kind of slow, but we had a big scare too in the 8-man tag later on. And there's a couple of just confusing things on here, but we'll get into it. Soup is giving it a 4 out of 10. We got a C+, a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 8, 5, 7, 8. Okay. I'm somewhere in there. I'm probably in the 7. I'm probably in the 6.5 to 7 range, something like that. Thank you, Arnez. Happy Labor Day to you as well. I've been off for the last 3 days, but I got to go back to work tomorrow, and I'm going to be working the next 6 in a row. I got a really busy week at work, so you're not going to get me again until, likely, unless something crazy happens, likely until Saturday for the Winged Eagle podcast. And a little programming note for you, this coming Saturday, the podcast is going to go prime time. I've got to be at work during the day, so I'm going to come up here Saturday evening for the podcast. I'm probably not going to, I've got it right now scheduled for 7 p.m. here, my time on the West Coast. So that's going to be 10 o'clock at night for you guys on the East Coast. It's going to be late, but maybe you can chill out, have a fun Saturday night together. I'll crack open a couple of cold ones, and we'll hang out. So we'll be up just several hours later than normal this week, about 4 to be exact. So just keep an eye on that for Saturday's Winged Eagle. If anything changes throughout the course of the week and I'm able to come up here an hour earlier or something like that, I'll let you guys know up on the social medias. So follow me on the Twitters and all that stuff. That's all I've got for scheduling and programming stuff and BS and plugs. We can get right into the news here, or right into the results, excuse me. And we will see how the audience fares tonight on a holiday edition of Monday Night Raw. But anyway, the show opens in the Thunderdome with a Randy Orton promo. He was scheduled and announced earlier on in the day to be facing Keith Lee again on Monday Night Raw. So it's like, why do they just keep having to do the match over and over? Because when we first saw Keith Lee and Randy Orton collide, it's like, oh, cool, that's a new, fresh matchup. Now, within 8 days, they've turned it into a match that I'm tired of seeing. Only WWE can accomplish something like that. Only they can make you hate something that should be awesome. So he's got a match later on with Keith Lee. So he's in the ring, cutting a promo, talking about all the things he's done to Drew McIntyre. And then we start hearing the sirens go off. Scott Steiner started trending during Monday Night Raw because of the sirens, I'm assuming. And the ambulance pulls up into the arena there. Drew McIntyre's driving it, so they either gave it to him or he stole it or he rented it or whatever. He gets out of the driver's seat. His music plays. He comes to the ring, kicks Randy Orton's ass, and claymores him. So Drew McIntyre's back despite the fractured jaw or skull or decapitation or whatever he suffered at the hands of Orton a couple of weeks ago with the 3 kicks. He's back. Now, apparently he's not cleared because after he beat the shit out of Orton, he goes backstage. He's confronted by Adam Pearce with the security guards, and he's already got a lot on his plate because he's trying to watch out for retribution. And he's mad at McIntyre for getting in the ring. You're not even cleared, dude. What are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. Orders him to leave. And, you know, seems really upset and a little bit like anxious about it. And we've been seeing, excuse me, we've been seeing Adam Pearce featured more on TV lately, especially a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown prior to SummerSlam when he needed to get, or prior to Payback, when he needed to get the contract signed and he was Postman Pearce. He's getting mad, very angry at the security guards for not being able to handle retribution. And I'm just going to make a little quick prediction here. I called it last week too. Adam Pearce is in retribution. I think he has to be. Because too many things, I think he's going to be like the Bischoff of retribution. Remember when like Eric Bischoff joined the NWO and he was kind of like outed by Roddy Piper? It's going to be something like that because when you think about it, some stuff here adds up a little bit. You've got Pearce who's acting all mad, you know, smoke screen or red herring or whatever, acting all bent out of shape that the security guards cannot handle retribution. He's screaming, he's yelling at them, but somehow they keep finding a way to infiltrate the building, messing with the lights, attacking people or whatever. Now you got the 2 main members of the roster, Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton. They're kind of butting heads head-to-head for the title. Drew McIntyre got severely injured on Raw a couple of weeks ago, and now this week on Raw, he is attacking throughout the course of the night Randy Orton and kind of repaying him for everything that Orton did to him. Meanwhile, Adam Pearce is pretending to be upset, ordering Drew McIntyre to leave the building and all of that, but maybe he's secretly kind of allowing these guys to destroy each other, to weaken both of them and make them a non-factor when they finally jump in to take over. Oh, if we can eliminate McIntyre and Orton, just have them kill each other, you know, that'll allow us more chance to do whatever they're trying to do to Monday Night Raw. So just a theory, but I just think there's a really good chance that Adam Pearce is pulling some strings for retribution and is either helping him out or is a full-blown member of the faction. That's what I'm going to predict. But it was kind of fun to watch, you know, Drew McIntyre get some payback on Randy Orton throughout the course of the night. But we will talk about that. Then they began a really long-running angle that they could have spread out over 3 weeks, but instead they crammed it into 3 hours. And this was going to be, I guess it's a 6-man tag, Apollo Crews, Ricochet, Cedric taking on the Hurt Business. Bobby Lashley, MVP, and Shelton Benjamin. Prior to the match, Hurt Business is entering the building. They beat the crap out of a janitor, so that was fun. And during the entrances here for the babyfaces, when Cedric comes out, he's attacked from behind by the Hurt Business. They kick his ass, they ambush him, and then the match starts. And then during the match, Cedric pulls Ricochet's foot, his tag team partner, off the ring apron, down to the ring floor, and just starts attacking him, beats him up, throws him into the barricade, hops in the ring, hits his other tag team partner, Apollo Crews, with a lumbar check, and allowing Hurt Business to get the win. Little stare down between the Hurt Business and Cedric. He's smiling, he's nodding at them, they're nodding at him, and that was kind of the end of it. And it seemed like, and it was pretty obvious, that Cedric Alexander has joined the Hurt Business. Now, I like that because I'm glad they didn't drag this out. This was not something you needed to treat like Sasha and Bayley. Just do it. There's no reason to wait. There's no reason to tease it any longer. It's obvious you're going to do something like that, and to not wait a year and a half to do that, I think was a good idea. Now, this would continue later on, and we'll talk about that. I just thought it was weird that you have a match with a heel turn, and then you wind up having a segment, and then another match later on, which we'll talk about, but all of that I felt like could have been stretched to next week, and you could do the official, t-shirt presentation to Cedric there, where he gets his Hurt Business shirt and he gets to stand tall with the other guys. So I kind of thought that would be the end of it, and it really did need to be, but we're dealing with a 3-hour TV show here, and they've got to fill it. So they got done a lot here with the Crews and, with the Cedric and Hurt Business stuff throughout the course of the night. But we'll get back to that. After that, we had a tag team match. Again, yet another match. Every single match on the card was like this. Another match that we have gotten a million times. We got the Street Profits taking on Angel Garza and Andrade again. But this time, they're teasing up and playing up more of the dissension between Andrade and Angel Garza. We saw some of that last week. During this match, Garza straight up abandons Andrade, just leaves him high and dry, doesn't even really get involved in the match, allowing Montez to hit him with one of his spectacular 5-star frog splashes. 6-star frog splashes, we should call it, and getting the pin and allowing the Street Profits to win. So Garza and Andrade are heading for a split. Street Profits are in the ring celebrating, and they're confronted by Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, at first, I'm like, Jesus, what the hell are they doing there? But then you remember these little brand-to-brand invitational bullshit stipulations that they have on these shows, and the name of the next pay-per-view is Clash of Champions. Now, a lot of times they save Survivor Series for the actual clash of the title holders and things like that, but they might do some title-for-title matches here, and I think they might have set up something like that tonight. Now, what I'm hoping this results in is a unification. Cesaro and Shinsuke, they come to the ring, they challenge the Street Profits to a match, not at the pay-per-view, but on Raw next week. They don't mention anything about unification. They just say champion versus champion match next week. They agree the match is on. So that's going to be next week. What I hope winds up happening is something happens. Some wonky finish, or somebody cheats, or there's a non-finish and a brawl and a pull-apart, and then somebody gets on the mic and says, all right, that's it, we challenge you. There can only be one tag team champions or whatever. And if this leads to a unification match, I think this is an excellent idea by the WWE. It's exactly what they need to do. I've been complaining about 2 sets of tag team titles ever since they've had 2 sets of tag team titles. Even back in the day, I didn't like it. Even in 2003, when you had like Los Guerreros on one side and one of the guys of the Rene Dupree team, whatever, the La Resistance on the other side. Even then, when tag team wrestling in WWE is a little bit better than it is now, I still thought it was too much. So I would, and we've talked about this in recent streams a few times here in 2020, that they should treat the men's tag team titles like the women's tag team titles, because then it also gives you another couple of wrestlers that you can move brands without having to make up some stupid, stipulation or some stupid rule. Oh, now 3 people per week. I mean 4. I mean, fuck it, 6. However many you want. Doesn't matter. Oh, now it's brand-to-brand invitational. Or all these dumb things and dumb ideas to try to get fresh matchups and stuff. If you have tag team champions that can go all 3 brands, that's fun. Imagine what you can do in NXT if you send Cesaro or Shinsuke there, or the Street Profits for that matter. So what I'm hoping winds up happening is we don't get a decision next week, but it leads to a unification match at Clash of Champions. I don't know why they would do this if they weren't going to do a unification, unless they plan on doing like Bobby Lashley against, who the hell's the IC champion right now? Jeff Hardy. or something, unless they're trying to do it like that and book it like Survivor Series. I don't really want to see that, and I certainly don't want to see it here and then see it again at Survivor Series. So if you're going to do that with the tag team champions, there's no better show than the Clash of Champions than to unify a title. So I think they should do that. And better yet, I want to take all 4 of those titles and ditch them and replace them with this. The old school belt. That's what we need. Remember when the Revival, didn't they get a petition going to bring back the old school titles? What if WWE actually did that just to fuck with them? Because they've been running their mouth and stuff, and there's been some shots fired back and forth. I think it would be funny if WWE brought back those title belts after the Revival left. I would love to see that. Now, WWE would never do that because that belt doesn't have their big, ugly, dumbass logo smeared all the way across 99.8% of it. But it sure would be cool if they did that as a little dig at the Revival. Hey, look what we brought back, and you've now simplified your tag team division, a tag team division that WWE doesn't appear to give a rat's ass about anyway. So you certainly don't need 2 sets of tag team titles. Combine them, make them floating champions to where they can go to all 3 shows whenever they want, just like the ladies can. And I think that would help the tag team division. Would it not? Would it make it better? Would it make it slightly more interesting when there's actually a tag team title match? Because it would mean a little bit more instead of just having literally at least one show has got the tag titles defended on it every week, right? So it's just constant and nobody cares if teams drop the belts, Cesaro and Shinsuke lose them to somebody or to the New Day, or nobody cares. It happens so often. It's not important anymore. They mean nothing. So you certainly don't need 4 of them belts. Simplify it, get it down to 2, make them a floating division, and just let every tag team in the company get a crack at the titles. I think that would make it much more fun, and it would make the titles in general just mean a little bit more. You know what I mean? That's what I think. So yeah, and I agree. They're very ugly, but that's what I think they're going to do here, because I don't think they would have set all this up randomly, just had Shinsuke and Nakamura come out on Raw if they weren't laying the groundwork. So they're going to take their time with it because they've got time. Clash of Champions not till the end of the month. So next week, look for it. Look for a disqualification. Look for just a no contest. Look for something. Maybe Retribution gets involved, or somehow we don't get any sort of finish in the match, and we get a challenge for the unification. Or I suppose maybe you could do a situation where one team wins next week, and then whoever loses winds up winning the unification bout. I suppose you could do it that way. Whatever happens next week, it's going to set up the Clash match, I hope. The big question is whether or not it will be a unification, and I think it very well might be. WWE might have actually listened to us for once. That would be nice. Kind of missed whatever was going on with R-Truth. All I know is he didn't lose the belt. That's all I care about. He just needs to be 24/7 champion. He was getting room service or something, and there was a food cart, and then one of the ninjas was underneath. It might have been Tozawa, and then he ran away. I didn't really catch any of that. I was curious. I wanted to make sure that he kept his green baby, and once he did, that's all that really mattered to me, and I stopped caring. So anyway, more shenanigans with Truth and the ninjas took place tonight, but I didn't really catch all of that. We had a one-on-one match with the Iconics. They, of course, did the big split last week. Billie Kay versus Payton Royce here. They were both sporting new theme music. Kind of a new, I wouldn't say gimmick, but new, kind of routine. And I always complain about that. I fucking hate it for the men and the women, but it's really prominent with the women's division. I don't understand why every single women's wrestler, when they come through their stage, come out to the ramp, they have to do a little dance, or they have to do a little routine. You know how Sasha Banks does her thing, and so-and-so does her thing. It's like Alexa Bliss has to do her little shit. And so Peyton kind of debuted another one where she did kind of like a half split and stuck her ass out or something. And then Billie Kay, she had like Femme Fatale written up on her Tron video or whatever, and wore like this gold outfit. Looked pretty good. I thought they were both, appeared fine and everything, and they've got new music, and it's going to take us time as fans to adjust to that. I understand. But it's just silly. It's like this cookie cutter nonsense, where every girl's just got to have a flashy outfit, a cool little routine to do, and music. And, it's all about there's more going into their presentation and their entrance and how they enter the ring than what actually takes place in the ring. And to me, that's just entirely out of balance, and it's weird. And, I thought they would stretch this match out as well. I'm still not completely sure what we saw out of these two last week. I kind of thought we saw Payton Royce turn on Billy. At least that's what I thought, because didn't she throw her into Raw Underground? Because we all joked that Billy dove into the Raw Underground ring to escape, and she threw her in there and she got her ass kicked. Isn't that what happened? But now they're facing each other, and we all know that Billy's going to be the Jannetty here. Maybe she'll surprise us, because we've all been... maybe she'll be the Christian, because people used to say that, oh, Christian's the lesser of the team, but many fans grew to appreciate Christian's ring work more than Edge, and Christian went on to be a world heavyweight champion himself. So I'm hoping that Billy is a Christian and not a Marty Jannetty, because if she goes the way of Christian, then she'll be fine. But here, it's clear that we've all heard the reports, and Vince wants to push Payton and blah, blah, blah. So she's going to get the win here. She did. She won with her neckbreaker finisher thing or whatever, which is good and doesn't look bad at all. And she got the win there, which was interesting, too, because at the end, they both kind of get up and Payton hugs her. You thought for sure one was going to attack the other. That's just what you're going to do there. Somebody's going to turn heel. I thought after Payton beat her, she would clothesline her, stomp her, kick her ass. And then Billy would leave for a couple weeks and come back as a babyface or whatever. But instead, they kind of hugged each other and seemed like they're going to be, we have to split up, but we also have to understand that we're going to have to face each other from time to time now being singles. And they're going to try to stay homies, I guess. But I don't understand why she threw her into the Raw Underground last week, unless I wasn't watching, unless I missed something and I didn't see that properly. But it seemed to me that she tossed her right in there to be fed to the lions. Yeah, a lot of people feel bad for Billy. Well, I think maybe we should just hold our horses on that, because that's what we're all assuming. We're all saying the same thing. I've said it like 100 times on this podcast, that Billy's going to be the Jannetty, and obviously Payton is the one that they want to push here. And I think maybe in a way that can be used as motivation for Billy. She sees social media. She's on social media. She's reading all this shit. She probably listens to our podcast. Every WWE wrestler does. We know that. So she's probably hearing this and be like, I'm going to use that as motivation. Prove all you assholes wrong. So go do it, Billy Kay. And like I said, maybe you won't be a Jannetty, you'll be a Christian, and that's not so bad. But anyway, best of luck to both of them, but I didn't really you think about it too. I've never been a fan of the Iconics. I thought they were just horrifically annoying, and I never cared about the team, and this kind of proved it. I mean, they were childhood friends, lifelong friends. They've been in the company for a few years now. They've been going through this journey together. It's well documented. We get the split and we get the match between the two. And I could have done without it. I didn't even need to see it. It is not like when the Rockers split up, you're like, holy shit, Jannetty versus Shawn, that's going to be great. You never felt that way about these two, because you just don't care. And that's a shame. Iconics, I'm sure, are hardworking, wrestlers and hardworking talent. And maybe they will grow on me here in singles, but I never cared for them. As a duo, as a tag team, didn't care much about anything they did. And the fact that I didn't care about this one-on-one match kind of proves how insignificant they were. So we'll see where the future takes the annoying Aussies. Good luck to both of them. After that, we had an in-ring interview with the entire Mysterio family. So Dominic continues to bring his entire family to his very dangerous job. And you guys, I want to know how many families of 4 exist in this world where the dad is the shortest member of the family. That's hysterical. Like they're walking. And I know, what's the girl? I forgot the daughter. His beautiful daughter, what's her name? She was in heels, so maybe that doesn't count. But when they're walking down the ramp together, like Ray is the littlest one, which just cracks me up. And I was worried for them too, because we've seen them on TV multiple weeks, and I'm like, man, Dominic, your dad can handle himself, but if you keep bringing Mama and Sister Mysterio here, their luck is going to run out, and Seth is going to do something horrific to them. And Dominic, of course, is scheduled to face Buddy Murphy in the street fight in the main event. So it's going to be no holds barred, and they're all going to be there. They don't get much chance to say anything in the ring. I think it's Charlie doing the interview in the ring. Murphy appears on the screen. He blames Dominic for Seth abandoning him and him having to prove himself now. And every bad thing that's happened to me is because of you. So that's a classic heel right there. All the horrible things they've done to that family, and he's blaming them. So I like that. And they basically just set up the match, that's going to be in the main event later on, which was really good. After that, we had a couple of, we had Nia Jax and Shaina Baszler backstage. I was about to talk about the handicap matches, but those didn't happen until later. So Nia and Shaina are backstage. They're talking about their 2 handicap matches. They each have to face the Riot Squad on their own back-to-back for some reason. So they're backstage talking about that with Adam Pearce. Drew McIntyre walks by, And Adam Pearce chases him down. He's like, dude, I told you to leave. And Drew claims that he's lost, which I loved. He's like, man, I'm just lost. I'm just trying to find my way out. It's okay. I'll leave. Clearly stalling. You know, he wants to hang around and get his hands on Randy Orton again. After that, we got a tag team match between Asuka and Mickie James taking on Lana and Natalya. Now, Asuka is going to defend the Raw Women's title next week on Raw against Mickie James. They worked NXT, didn't they? Isn't that when Mickie came back? After we hadn't seen her in WWE for a while, she came back and worked with Asuka at that, I think it was a takeover. Really good match between the two, and Asuka won, and that was like when Mickie returned. So, what year was that? It was before she came to the main roster, so I guess 3 years ago now, whenever that was. So anyway, they're going to team up first before they face each other next week. I was nervous since they're going to be rivals and opponents next week that there would be some miscommunication and they'd lose here, but I just cannot stand Natalya and Lana. So I am glad that they didn't get the win. Asuka wound up tapping out Lana in the Asuka lock there. And Babyface has got the win, and they'll clash for the Raw Women's title next week. I don't expect a title change here. I'm sure Asuka will defeat Mickie James. But Asuka also needs an opponent coming up, right, at Clash of Champions. So I think she's either going to work with Nia Jax or Shaina Baszler, or Shaina and Nia will have a tag team title match at Clash, or they'll have a tag team title match at Clash, and one of them will have to face Asuka. If not, maybe you do a Mickie heel turn next week or something. You know, they have kind of a good match. Maybe Mickie loses, gets pissed, turns heel, setting up another match at Clash or something. I don't know. Unless they want to bring over Bayley. They already did that. They're not going to have Bayley and Asuka work again at Clash of Champions. They've already done that. It's probably going to be Bayley and Sasha, actually. So Asuka's going to have to find somebody to face, and so maybe that'll get set up next week, and we'll probably know sooner rather than later what her Clash plans are going to be. Now we get the MVP lounge. So after we have the six-man tag, after they do the big heel turn with Cedric joining the Hurt Business, now they're going to do the MVP lounge. To me, this seems like a segment that should open next week's Raw, you know? Like based on how they the formula of how they normally do things. This would open up next week's Raw. This whole entire segment and match they did here should open the show next week, but instead they did it like an hour after the heel turn. So Hurt Business comes out there. Cedric is with him. They get in the ring. They've got the VIP lounge shit set up there. They present Cedric with his beautiful Hurt Business shirt, and he explains why he joined the Hurt Business, and I liked a lot of his explanation, especially when he brought up like his bank account, when he brought up his money. He's like, man, I'm on the business end of a beatdown every week. I'm sick and tired of it. Being Ricochet's partner is doing nothing for my wallet. I'm sitting in the back. I'm working main events. I'm not being used. So I know by joining you guys, I've got a spot every week and that sort of thing. So he finally agreed to join up. So as he's talking, the Viking Raiders come out, and they're joined by Apollo and Ricochet. And there's kind of a brawl, and then we go to commercial. And I'm thinking to myself, when we go to commercial, I'm like, are we going to get an 8-man tag when we come back from commercial? Yup, we are. So we got the 6-man tag with the heel turn, then the VIP lounge segment, then the run-in and the attack in the commercial, and then the 8-man tag. So they were just cramming a lot of stuff here into just like a 2-hour span or however long, you know, this was going on for. And it wasn't a good tag match because there was a major botch. I think, like I said, they could have done this last week. But during the match, Ivar does one of his running dives through the ropes. As soon as he hits the floor on the outside of the ring, he starts making the X symbol. So he's hurt himself. I thought maybe at first it was a knee, but it looked like it might have been his arm or wrist, or he might have broke a bone. Because he looked like he was hurting. He was shaking a little bit. And in the ring, while all this is happening, Cedric is in there with Ricochet. He hits him with the lumbar check, and he goes for the pin. And I think the referee is like wanting to go home because this is live. And I think he's probably telling the guys like, we're going to do the pin here, but Ricochet, he's not expecting to finish. So you do the 1, 2, and he clearly kicks out. It's not even close. He kicks out like immediately after 2. And the referee still kind of comes down for the 3 count and calls for the bell. They needed to end the match, but it looked terrible. It was a horrible botch. And I guess, you know, I don't know really who you would blame there. You know, you just gotta go with it. But referee should have just communicated that a little bit longer. Let's do the finish right now. Ricochet kicked out anyway because that's what he was supposed to do prior to the injury. So it just looked like a mess. But if you put that aside, that was the right call there. The one thing I was saying to myself prior to the Ivar injury, watching the match, I'm like, Hurt Business better not lose. You know, right after that heel turn and that and Cedric joining them, they go out there now and lose right after that. Fuck, So I was like, no way can they lose. And not only did they win, but Cedric got the pin, which was the right call. But unfortunately, it looked like crap. Somebody did ask me, though, on Twitter if I thought that the Ivar stuff was a dig at AEW. Like maybe they were saying, because as soon as he said he needed help, they called the match and everything. But I don't think so. First of all, I doubt it. And if WWE is going to take a shot or a dig like that at AEW, I wouldn't do it at the expense of like a pretty major angle. The Hurt Business is a pretty big part of Raw. They had the big heel turn there with Cedric joining them. I wouldn't use this particular match to do it. I would do it in a throwaway match. I would do it in something else. So I felt like this angle was a little bit more important to take that dig at them. But based on the finish, with Ricochet kicking out, and if they would have done a funny match restart or rang the bell and then the match restarted, maybe you could make that argument, but I seriously doubt it. I think Ricochet and everybody was taken off guard by that. It was not the original plan because the finish looked so wonky. Hey, Tito, get down off the counter. I got my cat getting on the counter. Don't go over there. Not allowed. I got dirty dishes in the sink. He's going to fall in. Anyway, what'd you guys think about that? Is there any news on Ivar yet? Guessing it was an arm? Jesus Christ, Tito. Ugh, I hate my cat. I'm not seeing anything on him now. Yeah, let's hope he's all right. Luckily it wasn't as scary as a situation like with Matt Hardy, where we're very concerned about his concussion status and, anything else that might have happened to his head in that fall. This looked like we're talking a broken bone, a sprained bone, something like that. It looked like he hurt one of his limbs. That's not life-threatening. That sucks. Keep you out of action for a while, especially if you've torn something or need surgery or you broke something. But in the end, he's going to be all right. But yeah, either way, best of luck to Ivar. Hope it's not that serious. Oh, it is an ACL. That was my first thought, because when a big guy jumps out like that, and does a dive like that, their knees are really, really, really at risk. I've seen larger people, tear their ACLs and shit before. And the way he does that stuff, I wouldn't doubt it. Just when he landed, he didn't seem like he landed too much on his knees or on his legs. He seemed like he landed more on his arms. So I thought maybe it was that. But my initial thought was the same thing. Was probably be something like an ACL. Well, that sucks, because that's going to be a long time before he's back. Oh, thank you for that. TakeOver Toronto 2016. That's where the Mickie James and Asuka match happened? Interesting. 4 years ago. Holy shit. I remember that. It's good to see Mickie back. We were all excited about it. What do we have next here? So after the MVP lounge shit, the 8-man tag, Ivar got injured. We have, we've got Keith Lee versus Randy Orton, because that is the advertised match for later on. That's why you knew Drew McIntyre was stalling backstage with Adam Pearce. Oh, I'm lost. He's just trying to stall so he can hang around for the Lee and Orton match. Don't understand why we're getting this again. Got it on Raw. Got it on Payback. Got it last week in the Fatal 4-Way. Enough. It's not like, that's what I said about when we opened up the podcast here. Like, only WWE can take a match that on paper looks marvelous. And 8 days ago, it was a fresh matchup. And in just a little bit over a week, they've rendered it down to where we don't want to see it again. Only WWE can accomplish that with two awesome wrestlers like these guys. And also with Drew showing up there and Drew being in the arena and Adam Pearce confronting him backstage, you knew we weren't going to get a finish out of this match either. So I think these guys could have worked with anybody. Randy Orton could have been in the ring with anybody, and he could have still done the same thing here. You didn't have to do Orton and Lee again. So they start doing the match. Orton does not want to get in the ring at first. He's kind of complaining that he's not all there because he took a Claymore to the face in the opening segment. He's not quite 100%, but the referee is forcing him to wrestle. So he gets in there, but he's weakened. They go to have a match. Orton does eventually. It's kind of a cool spot where he goes for the RKO and Keith Lee just kind of blocks it and just stands there. Like Orton can't get him down or whatever, but he does wind up hitting it later on. And as soon as he hits the RKO on Keith Lee, before he can get a chance to pin him, McIntyre hits the ring, claymores Randy Orton again, and knocks him down and gets right in his face. And he says something to him, like in his ear, like I want you to see me in your nightmares," type of thing, which I like. That's a pretty good line, and it was satisfying in a way to watch McIntyre get his revenge. I like, McIntyre being a babyface champion, but one that's not like a suffer and succotash Roman Reigns type of guy. He's out for blood. He's not going to take shit from anybody. He's not scared of Randy Orton. He wants revenge on Randy Orton, and he will be as vicious as possible in order to get that revenge. I like that mentality of a babyface, and I didn't want to see Drew McIntyre start going down the road of the goody two-shoes type of babyface. This is still not a guy, even as a babyface, he's a guy I would not trifle with, and I liked seeing him get a little bit of revenge on Randy Orton, and he would not be done. We also had Kevin Owens and Aleister Black set to face each other in Raw Underground. Now, Black turned heel and turned on Owens in the Kevin Owens show, and then last week attacked him prior to the Randy Orton match and knocked Owens out of a chance to win the title. This was kind of cool because Owens shows up at the Raw Underground, guarded the door, guarded by Shane McMahon and Shaq, and he says that he wants, he talks about his history with Shane McMahon. He goes, "I still think you're a jackass," or whatever he said to him, and he goes, "We've had a lot of history," and Owens or Shane lets him in the door, and it was kind of cool that they just touched on, that brutal history that they've had with each other as well, and Owens is going to go in there to take on Aleister Black, so they immediately start fighting for a while, and then it goes to commercial. Now, these two would go on to fight through 3 segments, and it was a pretty good fight, but I felt like Raw Underground was lacking a little bit here, because each little scuffle only lasted a few seconds. They come back, I think after another match later. I'm going to skip way ahead here, but they're still fighting, and then you go to commercial, you do another match or something, and you come back, and they're still kicking each other's ass, and that's when they both fall victim to the big guy. I forget his name. Is he the guy that used to be Babatunde? I was getting ready for the stream when all that was happening, so I was only had my 15% of my attention. So I think that guy jumped in and laid them both out, and we never really got a definitive winner out of that. But, that's just going to lead to a match between them, and whatever they do between Owens and Aleister is probably going to have to take place on Raw, considering Clash of Champions is probably going to be really heavily loaded with almost all title matches, right? Is that the plan? I know back in the day, the Clash of Champions didn't necessarily have to be all champions, but I think this is kind of what they're going here for. So they might be able to do their deal on Raw. I don't know, and I'm sure we'll get something between the two guys next week. But it wasn't the best Raw Underground this week. Let me cruise up here before I get into the last couple things about the show and knock out a couple super chats that I know I've missed from earlier. Where are you? Antoine, there's the first one. Oh, wow, that came in a while ago. Just seeing this now, appreciate the 10. I like this Raw. They got all their storyline stuff off. Retribution finally tell us what they are about, and Beatdown finish was awesome. I do think Survivor Series will be about Retribution. Could be. That's a ways off. But maybe that's when we get the whole reveal. Maybe every match. Oh, man, I don't know. Yeah, you could be right. Could be Retribution versus WWE at Survivor Series. Wouldn't it be cool if they did it? Well, no, that'd be such a clusterfuck. I was about to say if they didn't reveal any members until Survivor Series and everybody was revealed on one show, but that would take a lot of the shock away from the individual people. I don't know. Okay, Antoine, you're clarifying they were looking upper body, not his leg. Okay, when he initially took the spill, I was assuming it was leg. Then after I watched the replay, it looked like it was arm or upper body. And then somebody said ACL again, so I'm not really sure. Either way, hope he's okay. Oh, man. What do we have next on Raw? So we kind of had the Owens and Black stuff that stretched out a little bit. We'll continue that saga next week. Next up, we had those 2 handicap matches that we talked about earlier. Both Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax have to face the Riot Squad 2-on-1. We get Shayna up first. Nia comes to the ring with her, and of course they hate each other, so Shayna is, in there trying to do her thing. She can easily beat Liv and Ruby by herself with, her leg tied behind her back if she wanted to, but she's too preoccupied with Nia Jax on the outside of the ring who won't shut the fuck up. And she's arguing with her. She gets distracted, allowing Liv Morgan to actually get the pin on Shayna Baszler. That shocked me a little bit, but I also kind of put a smile on my face because it's not going to hurt Shayna. Who cares? And good win for Liv. She needs something, for God's sakes. So Nia gets a kick out of that. She loves it. She thinks it's fucking hilarious. So now it's her turn to face the Riot Squad in a handicap match. I don't believe we got a finish in this because during the match, that's when we got the Retribution stuff. The lights went out, or they started flickering at first. Then they went out. Retribution appeared on the screen, and we hear a voice. Not sure whose it is. It was definitely distorted or whatever. A lot of people thought it was Dominic Dijakovic who was standing there and might have been doing the talking too. I don't know. I'm not good at figuring stuff out like that because when people speak in WWE, I don't pay attention. So I don't know what anybody's voice even sounds like. So they're up there, but they reveal, at least it feels like, a little bit of what they're about, what they're going to do. And they made that specific comment about WWE dumping them and forcing them to fend for themselves in an unfair world or whatever they said there. And did I write down another quote? They said something about like seeping through the pores of the WWE superstars or something like that, you know, just like they're really gonna infiltrate to where they're just gonna be everywhere type of thing. So their plan is definitely retribution, it's definitely revenge, and they made it sound as if that they were treated unfairly by WWE. Now, all of those names that they released back in April, are there enough names on that list not working in AEW right now to even create a faction that anybody would give a shit about? Mike Bennett and stuff, like, I don't give a shit about him. So I don't know who's going to comprise this faction, but now it feels like it's going to have to be people that were let go or whatever. That's why it made me question, just for a second, it made me question whether or not the Authors of Pain release was legit. Because if it's not, and it's used here, they can turn up in Retribution. I could see that happening, them taking the masks off. Oh my God, it's Authors of Pain. They were released or whatever. And whoever else, name me some names. I can't even remember all those names now that were released. A lot of them were like backstage agents and shit as well. You know, but like the Matt Cardonas and guys like that, they're all in AEW now. Some people are in Impact. Eric Young's a champ, isn't he? Eric Young would be a great guy to have in that group. He's got some retribution he needs, the way that company treated him. So I don't know who it could be, but what's interesting about that is everybody's been watching the retribution angles on TV and being able to, like, because me, I don't even bother. I don't bother trying to recognize who's under the hood because that doesn't matter. It's like, it's like the Blue Blazer or what. Anytime before they do a reveal, you could put anybody under the hood you want. It doesn't matter who's under there until it's time to reveal them. So everybody's like, oh, I recognize Mia Yim, or I recognized Vanessa Bourne. I'm like, okay, but who's to say they're even going to be in that when it's time? I think maybe Drake Maverick would be cool because we've seen so many little tiny people. Drake Maverick might be a good option there because technically he was released, but he did get a contract back. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, but at least it seems like now they've made their intentions known. And I like the way they it felt like the voice was distorted a little bit. I'm still holding out hope that hacker has got something to do with it. And they reveal that, and I'm hoping that Mustafa Ali is somehow a part of this, but possibly even the leader. But again, that's what a lot of fans want. I know that's the right thing to say. Oh, it'd be so cool if Mustafa Ali was the leader, give him something significant to do, but would you care? Is that enough? I know we all want great things for Mustafa Ali, but put your money where your mouth is. You know, if you really want him to be pushed and be into something like this, if he's revealed to be the leader, what if the angle sucks? You know, like what if it's almost like a letdown? Like, oh, okay, cool, happy for him, but was kind of hoping for a bigger name or a bigger surprise than that. I don't know. I don't even know how the fans would react if it turned out to be him. I think some of us who love him would be happy for his opportunity, but I'd be questioning whether or not it was even going to be very good. Because so far, Retribution hasn't been very good. But we got a few more clues now, and now we kind of feel like we might know where they're going with it. But start making me a faction. You know, start making a faction. Rusev is an excellent idea. Rusev is great. I would love to see him in Retribution. Jinder Mahal being in Retribution, I can definitely see that because there have been some very tall people in there, Dominic and Jinder. But yeah, make me a faction down there. You guys are better at this stuff than me. So just think of everybody that's like not on TV right now or hasn't gotten opportunities and is like on main event and shit. Ricochet should be another member of this faction, actually. And the people that are released that aren't doing other things already with the AEW or Impact or wherever. Make a faction. We're going to need at least 10 of them. Give me Ocean's 11 over here. Give me 11 members. Right now, I'm really liking the Jinder and the Rusev ideas. It's really all I can think about. Ryback? Maybe. Probably not. I don't think they care much for Ryback. I did hear about that. Well, apparently we just found out. I saw the Ralphus stuff today. I swear I have looked him up before. when I saw today that, because apparently Chris Jericho, I think, revealed on his stream or something last night or Saturday night that Ralph has passed away last year. So it's been a while since he's passed away, but part of me, I have a terrible memory, but part of me, when I read it, wasn't surprised, almost as if like I already knew it. So I think I've actually heard that. I think when he died, I knew about it. I think we heard about it. It didn't make a whole lot of waves or something, and so a lot of people were talking about it today. But when I read that he died last year, I was like, yeah, I kind of half-assed remembered that. I don't know. But anyway, he was great. He was a great character. And how he came together. And he's such a good example of why Jericho's so awesome. He does the most random things. And back at WCW, he would just entertain himself by doing these random-ass ideas and, the the Jerichoholic stuff and doing the hair in a different way and song lyrics and bringing out Ralphus with the JPS security and shaking his finger at everybody and had no teeth. And he was like one of the legit production guys. I think he was a truck driver for WCW. And Jericho just found him and wanted to bring him on TV. So I'm glad Jericho gave him that opportunity, and hopefully he made a little bit of money for himself. And apparently he's been passed away for a while now. But he was old then. He was old 24 years ago. So I guess it's not that surprising. But rest in peace to Ralphus, because he was the best. Next up, we had... Was it McIntyre again? Oh, yeah, we just had the main event. But prior to the main event, after the Retribution stuff, we get Randy Orton backstage. He's already taken 2 ass whippings from Drew McIntyre tonight. He's backstage, and they've got that backstage ring that they do a bunch of shit in. He's back there, and McIntyre comes out of the shadows and attacks him again. So I love this. Like he's, Randy Orton, his character, to have these sabotage sneak attacks on his opponents to scare them, in the Viper way, and know that he can strike at any time, and striking fear into people that they have to be looking over their shoulder for him. I like that McIntyre's kind of giving it back to him, and he doesn't seem to be scared or intimidated at all. So he comes out of the shadows, attacks Orton again, gets him in the ring, and just beats the shit out of him in the ring and claymores him again. So I think Orton took a grand total of 3 claymores this week, just like McIntyre took 3 punts a couple of weeks ago. So McIntyre got his payback, and they're set to collide, of course, at Clash of Champions. And now I'm curious with McIntyre, if he's back, if he's still going to be like not cleared for a couple of weeks and he doesn't actually wrestle a match again until Clash of Champions. That's probably how I'd do it. But you still got, 3 more Raws of build here, I think, before you get to this match. So we'll see. Maybe 2 more Raws before they go home. But I liked it. All in all, I liked Randy Orton, kind of giving back to him a little bit. McIntyre got some revenge, good stuff, and I'm looking forward to the match. Now, one thing we mentioned after Payback, or we mentioned last week, I think, during the Raw stream, is that I wouldn't even rule out this being done at Clash, because the pay-per-view after that is Hell in the Cell, right? But it's a whole month away. I think Hell in the Cell is like November 1st. So based on what we've seen so far in this feud, you could argue that everything that's happened and transpired between these 2 guys, that could warrant a Hell in the Cell match. So if it does, you're going to have to do something else at Clash of Champions, and then you're going to have to build another 4 weeks to the Hell in the Cell. Otherwise, McIntyre, presumably, is going to have to wrap up business here with Randy Orton, beat him and be done with him, and then move on to another opponent for Hell in the Cell. But they better not put that match in a Hell in the Cell, because that would make no sense for them. I hate it when they just throw together Hell in the Cell matches, and I really hope it doesn't turn out to be Drew McIntyre versus Keith Lee, and then they make these friends fight in the cell. Like, I don't want to see that. So I'm almost hoping that, like, Orton wins the title at Clash of Champions from Drew McIntyre, cheats, does some shit, and then McIntyre challenges him to the blow-off in the Hell in the Cell, and then he beats him and wins the title back. Would you guys care to see that, or would you rather just have Drew continue his uninterrupted run? Or do you think, would it matter if he just coughed the belt up for 4 weeks and got it right back? Would that tarnish anything? Would that tarnish his, his run in any way? Coughing it up to Orton like that? I don't know. We got the draft coming up probably too in October, which will be happening prior to Hell in the Cell. So you could start moving some champions around. You could move Randy Orton. So, my gut kind of tells me that McIntyre will just finish up with Orton, retain, and be done with him, and Orton will go off to SmackDown or something, is what I think might happen. But if you wanted to stretch it out, you could actually put the title on Randy Orton if you wanted to, and then have him drop it at Hell in the Cell. What do you think? Mr. Kennedy in Retribution. I don't think so. Jerry Blackwell, no way. Ryback, I really hope not. Yeah, I saw that Eric Young is world champ in TNA. Good for him. No, Bob Backlund will not be. PCO? Maybe. PCO might have a gripe. They did some pretty dumb shit with him. I mean, he was one of the Quebecers, but then they gave him the pirate gimmick, and he didn't get along with the clique and all sorts of stuff. But man, I don't think fans would even know who he is. Modern wrestling fans today, WWE fans anyway. Anybody but the hardcores. After that, so after Randy Orton gets his ass whipped by Drew McIntyre for a third time, we get the main event. It's a street fight between Murphy and Dominic Mysterio, and the entire Mysterio family comes to the ring to watch this shit. And it's a pretty good match. You know, Dominic, he's all over the place. I liked his ring gear too, sporting some new ring gear tonight. You know, he's doing a lot of flips and dives, and they had brawled off to the side somewhere over on the staging. And Dominic, right before commercial, he took a big dive like off a platform or something and landed on Murphy. And the way he landed, and then they immediately cut to commercial, I thought we were going to come back with Dominic injured. It didn't look good. And based on their luck tonight, you know, they already had one, injury with Ivar. I was nervous coming out of that commercial that Dominic might have hurt himself, but he didn't. Match continued. This was great. This started getting real good near the end here because I was really nervous for the Mysterio family, especially with the mom and the sister being there. I'm like, man, I hope they don't do something where they get hurt. Like that they've put in storyline, they've put this family through enough. So with Seth not even being there, this is a perfect opportunity to wrap it up. So Buddy at one point gets Dominic caught in the ropes, in the Andre the Giant tie in the ropes deal. So Dominic is stuck there. All the Mysterio family have kendo sticks too in their hand. Like even the sisters got one. So I think Buddy is going to get a kendo stick or something. He's Mysterio starts messing with him. Referee's got his back turned. Or actually, I don't think the referee needs to have his back turned because there's no rules in a street fight. But what I liked is that mom and sister jumped up onto the ring apron and unhooked Dominic from the ropes. And he's able to capitalize on Buddy. And then they tie Buddy in the ropes. And Ray and Dominic take turns with the kendo stick, just whacking the shit out of Buddy Murphy, just the same way they did that to Dominic all those weeks ago. Mysterio looked right into the camera and, Seth, are you watching this? You watching your boy get knocked out and just beaten to shit with these kendo sticks? And then they bring mom and sister in the ring and they unhook him and he's laying on the mat and all four Mysterio members are just whipping him. This happened after he actually gave up. So he was tied in the ropes after he was getting his ass kicked. He gave up. Dominic is the winner of the street fight via submission. And then mom and sister and papa and brother all grab their kendo sticks and they just lay waste to Murphy. It was great stuff. Now, my favorite spot of the whole thing that I kind of glossed over here was when they unhooked him from the ropes. When mama and sister unhooked Dominic from the ropes, he did like a diving running power bomb onto Murphy, who's on the outside of the ring in perfect position, and he kind of dives right over him and power bombs him right through a table that's leaning up against the guardrail or the barricade. And that was just an amazing spot. And Murphy took it like $1 million. It was executed to perfection, and it was great. And that's when I was like, oh, that was good. Like that was the Mysterios working as one. The mom and the sister unhooked him. Ray was dealing with Buddy on the other side, and then Dominic flies in and nails him with a power bomb through the table. I thought it was great. So just the kendo stick stuff, the table spot, Murphy giving up, and all four Mysterio family members beating him down with kendo sticks was a great way to end Monday Night Raw, and it was a really great way to bounce back the show because up until that point, I didn't think the show was very good, even though we got the Cedric heel turn and we got some clues about Retribution. Overall, I was struggling to get through it, so the fact that they gave us a really exciting main event here with a finish and all of that, and what seems to be, hopefully now, putting to bed this whole thing. I mean, this has been stretching out for a while, too, dating all the way back to the Extreme Rules stuff and the eye gouge out, and now Mysterio is hurt again anyway, so he's going to be needing some time off. Now that Murphy has been defeated and all of that, I feel like everybody can kind of go their separate ways now. So if the situation with the Mysterios and the Monday Night Messiah and Seth and Murphy are all done and is finished now, what does Dominic do next? Does he stick around on the main roster, continue to have matches there, and work like a full-time main roster set of TVs and stuff, or do they maybe take the spotlight off of him for a little while, let him continue to work or learn in the Performance Center, send him to NXT? I don't know. To me, the kid looks ready for prime time. He's main eventing Monday Night Raws. in his third or fourth match or whatever he's on now. It's pretty impressive. I don't think he really needs to be in NXT, but, you know, after this, I don't know what they're really going to do. I mean, I don't really think we need to see another Murphy or Seth match against Dominic. We've seen them both face him one-on-one. We've seen them face him in tag team matches. We've seen them face in stipulation matches. What else is there to do? There's literally nothing left to do. So I think now maybe Murphy and Seth, we'll get into it a little bit. Maybe they finally implode. Maybe Seth tries to rebuild the Monday Night Messiah with more trustworthy members, or the Monday Night Messiah is going to be disbanded, or Seth takes Murphy back. I think Murphy should maybe do something on his own now, maybe turn on Seth or go babyface or whatever. Maybe join the Hurt Business. I talked about that on Twitter earlier. You know, if the Hurt Business adds an Owen Hart, you know what I mean? You know, like when the Nation did the same thing. If they were to add an Owen, I think it should be like Ziggler. You know, Ziggler's been featured in the Raw Underground stuff. He's been, you know, he's a college wrestler and collegiate wrestler and all that. Buddy Murphy's a pretty tough dude as well, so I think he could join. But if they wanted to add that like token Owen into the group, I think like Ziggler would be a great guy. Couldn't you see him in the ring with the Hurt Business, wearing the Hurt Business shirt, talking all the smack on the mic? He'd fit right in with Lashley and MVP and stuff. Ziggler should be in that group. So I hope they add him or something like that. But in terms of Murphy, I don't know. I guess it could go either way with that, but I'm assuming that Seth is going to disown him now after coming up short and getting humiliated by the Mysterio family the way he did in the main event. So anyway, that wraps it up for the results of Monday Night Raw tonight. I'm in Retribution. Yes, I am. I got a bone to pick with those guys in there. That's not that Mike the Scott. That's not that off the wall. I can see Samoa Joe being in Retribution as well. And I mentioned this, I think, last week. I asked you guys, because I wasn't sure, of all the times that Retribution have crashed the ringside area, has Samoa Joe gotten roughed up at all? The announcers always seem to escape, right? I don't think any of them have gotten beaten down yet. But if Joe keeps being spared in these attacks and stuff, he could be behind it as well. Infiltrating. That's why I like the idea of them having like pieces all over the place. Like they got Adam Pearce backstage infiltrating the backstage area. He's in charge of security. He's pulling the strings, letting these guys get into the building, you know, working undercover. Samoa Joe has got an angle covered from the announce desk and being able to, you know, coordinate things with them or whatever. And then if you can find some other members as well, if you can get a referee in on it, just saying, you know, if they can have like little undercover members that don't have masks on but are working for Retribution, I think that would be fun and a great way to kind of continue to add to the story, especially if one of them gets outed or revealed or something, and then it's like, holy shit, there might be more of them. If there's one mole, there could be more moles, and then nobody trusts anyone, and, you know, that sort of thing. So that's why I've just got this feeling about Adam Pearce, you know, a couple weeks ago during the Payback stuff, like Vince McMahon put him in a really tough spot. Oh, by the way, I'm going to need you to go to the fun house and get a signature from the serial killer. Then you have to go to a very, very angry monster among men who just lost his title, get a signature from him too, and then find Roman Reigns, who just murdered 2 people on worldwide pay-per-view in the main event of SummerSlam. Ask him to sign this piece of paper. Dude, it's a lot to ask. You know, you're like sending me, it's like a death sentence. So I feel like he could have, you know, a bone to pick as well, maybe with WWE or the way he's been treated or whatever. And it could, you know, because he's a former wrestler and he's got some, you know, microphone ability, you could utilize that in some form in Retribution. So I would like to see if, you know, a few people come out that were working with Retribution the whole time. Samoa Joe and Adam Pearce, I think, are really good options. But, you know, another thing we got to think about in the Retribution promo tonight, when they said that they're going to, you know, infiltrate, it's going to seep through the pores, and we're going to be everywhere. They're still limiting this to Raw, though, right? You know, I think that was kind of like a mistake. I mean, it's good for the fans. The angle sucks, and so far everything they've done has been kind of shitty. So we don't really want to see that on both shows. But in terms of what the angle is and the motivation of this group, why would they limit it to a Monday and not a Friday? It's all in the same building. It's not like they're traveling anymore. It's all here. So why are they deciding to take the night off on Fridays and Wednesdays for that matter? And they only give a shit about Monday. You know, so that might even simplify their motives a little bit more. We might have to start looking at that and saying, okay, who specifically on Raw do you think they're really targeting? Because if they have a revenge against, if they want to get revenge against Vince McMahon or revenge against anybody that released them, you would think that revenge would want to be against the whole entire company, not on just one show on one night. So some of that doesn't make sense either. We'll see. And again, there's also the very, very, very likely chance that WWE is writing this shit as they go, meaning they wrote the promo tonight without any idea how to pay this off. Hey, we kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit that these are released wrestlers, but we don't even have any released wrestlers to use right now, or we haven't contacted any of them. So they might be going through this and not really knowing what the end result is going to be anyway. And whenever that happens, it always sucks, always. We'll see. Oh, Kurt Hawkins. I like that idea too. Yeah, bring Kurt Hawkins in here. He's always got stuff to do. No, that is, when did that air? Is that airing tonight for the first time, or did that air last night? But Jerry Lawler is the next guest on the Broken Skull Sessions. That is probably going to be a pretty good podcast because they got a lot to get into, man. I mean, are you going to be able to wrap that up in an hour? That is a lot. I'm interested in that one. Yeah, Tom Phillips was also absent tonight. I didn't even notice that Michael Cole was doing commentary until I saw it on Twitter. And somebody said that they didn't notice that Cole was doing commentary because I tuned that shit out. I don't even realize like who's on commentary half the time. So when Michael Cole was talking, my brain just didn't process it because I try to tune all those guys out most of the time. No, we've all talked about the CM Punk possibilities for Retribution. I think we'd all love that, but I mean, even CM Punk, he probably has some standards. If he's watching this on TV, he's probably like, I don't want to be the leader of that group. That sucks. Fans are shitting on it. I'll be the leader of something good, not something dumb. All right, what else here? What'd they say about Ivar? Suffered a cervical injury. Cervical is spine, right? Isn't that spine related? Oh, man, the way he landed did not seem like anything in his head. I even just said that a little while ago. I'm like, oh, luckily for Ivar, anything that's wrong with him is probably a broken bone or something like that on a limb, something that's not life-threatening or career-threatening. But, yee. Man, I hope he's all right. Oh, actually, I'm not surprised about that. Sean is reporting that Tessa Blanchard is signed with WWE. I kind of expected her to land there. I'm not seeing anywhere where he's saying that, but I think she'd be better off in AEW because they need some serious help in the women's division. But I can see WWE bringing her in and doing things with her. Makes sense. I missed what Brody said. I did see somebody say, oh, Brody took a shot at WWE, but I don't know what he said. Fill me in. I don't mind the little digs here or there. There was a lot of, the whole weekend was filled with a lot of debate, too, and stuff about All Out and some of the decisions that were made, and they were getting a lot of heat for the Matt Hardy stuff that was kind of poorly handled. Rebby was even getting involved there. You know, you had guys like Brian Alvarez were saying, like, on Twitter, oh, I've heard Matt Hardy is doing okay, and she chimes in, she goes, neither one of us talked to you, so fuck off kind of thing. She has just always got something to say, somebody to lash out at or whatever. She's crazy and funny. But Matt Hardy tweeted today that he's going to be on Dynamite this Wednesday to speak to everybody. So apparently he's okay. They did, Tony Khan reported that he did not suffer a concussion, but that still doesn't mean that there's not more tests that need to be done with your head and everything. So the bump was just bad regardless the way he fell off of that thing. And, you know, they knew enough to call for the bell. They knew enough to end the match. But for some reason, they allowed Matt, I'm guessing Matt, to talk them into restarting the match or something. Or at least maybe they are leaning on him a little bit. I don't know. Maybe they're like, can you get out? Can you go? Can you just finish? Can you just do the spot? It could have been going that way. I don't know. When just knowing Matt and, the generation he comes from, it was nothing 20 years ago to get a concussion and continue the match. So maybe he was like insisting, like, oh, I can do it. Just give me, it's just going to take 45 seconds. All I got to do is go out there, climb the thing. Sammy falls through it and it's done. Either way, it was just not a smart decision, on either party, regardless of who is responsible for it. But as a wrestling company, you cannot allow the talent to make that call. It's not in there. It's just no. So I don't know who to blame really in that, but they were getting a lot of flack for that, Jim Ross thing, same thing. And All Out just wasn't really that great of a show. But like I said the other day, I was like, I don't need 62 tweets to describe that. I'm sure that they'll bounce back. No wrestling company has a perfect batting average. It's a little bit sad when you look on social media and see how many people who really, truly, even if they don't say it, you can see it. They're as transparent as glass. They really, really want AEW to fail. And to let wrestling fans or like hardcore fanboys get to you to that degree to where you're actually hoping for failure in the wrestling business, you are no more of a fan than they are. You're no worse than they are. To actually let them get to you to that point, I don't give a fuck what some AEW reject freaks out about. Even if I even did an experiment a few days ago on Twitter where I gave them a very polite minor criticism and even prefaced that criticism with, hey, I usually kiss their ass in every single one of my podcasts because I love AEW and I love what they've done for the past year. But, I don't like this. And then sure enough, I just wanted to see how bad the cult was. And sure enough, I was having people getting mad about it. Well, this is what WWE. I'm like, just relax. I'm just chill. I'm not shooting your kid in the head. I'm just talking, it's like they take such offense, like you're actually attacking their firstborn or something. So I'm like, I just relax. Like, it's okay to say like something sucks. So I get it that those fans are a little bit ridiculous, but you see a lot of that on social media from people who claim, well, I really don't have anything against them. Yes, you do. Yes, you fucking do. You ain't fooling anybody. And it's sad to see that people actually really want them to fail. Maybe I had a little bit of that in me too, 10 years ago with the TNA stuff. I mean, those fans were so out of their minds in my mind. I'm like, all right, you fuckers wait until this company turns into nothing and reduced to nuts and bolts, and I'll be like, I told you so. But it didn't really feel good to say I told you so because it just meant, the company was failing and dwindling away. They're still here, but they had some close calls there. And they're certainly not what they used to be back 13, 14 years ago. So I think it's silly, to really, really root for a company's failure. And, everybody used that as ammunition. Over the weekend, I saw so many. I stayed completely off Twitter yesterday for the most part. I tweeted a couple of things, but I just kind of I just watched everybody having something to say. So the people that, those people that quietly or like in the closet about hating AEW and really secretly want them to fail, boy, they were all over Twitter giving all their little 2 cents about, oh, I don't know, they had a bad pay-per-view. I think if you're a new company, you have to be perfect. No, you don't. No, you don't. Not at all. Even ECW at the height of their greatness, could shit the bed every now and then. And All Out is kind of like their WrestleMania. I do think it was a disappointment, but come on. Every pay-per-view has to be good or they're going to fail or they're going to fold or whatever. Oh, fans are going to want to pay the money. Yeah, I paid $50 for it. I'm from the generation, I talked about this during the review too. I'm from the generation where I bought between WWE and WCW, about 16 pay-per-views a year. I bought every single one of WWE's once a month, and usually anywhere from 2 to 4 from WCW per year. I would purchase on my own. Do you know how many times I did that and got a show that I felt like I didn't get my money's worth? A lot of times, even back then when wrestling was awesome. So to look at it like, oh, we paid $50 and we didn't get satisfied, you have no idea. You young fans have no idea what it's like to actually put down real money for something and be disappointed. If it happens every now and then or once in a blue moon or whatever, it's going to happen. That's the risk and the gamble you take when you buy a UFC event, when you buy a boxing event, or when you buy a wrestling event. You could be disappointed. It's a risk. And when you don't get what you want and you scream and yell about it, you just sound entitled. But another thing that we talked about with AEW is they're a lot more likely to listen to criticism than WWE is. What happens every time we get on WWE's case about a bad show? Not only do they not listen to us, but they double down on how great the show was. And they'll talk about it on TV like it was the greatest event in history when it made all of us vomit. At least with AEW, they might read some of this and be like, okay, we got to make sure that if we're making fans pay $50 for a show, we got to plan this better. We got to deliver something better than what we gave them at All Out. I think they're more likely to react that way than WWE because we've seen them change some things due to the fan reaction. Somebody informed me of this too. I don't know the validity of it, so you guys can help me. But when I was doing my all-out predictions, I had the tooth and nail match written down as the buy-in show, as the pre-show. And somebody told me that the fans made such a stink about it that, oh, Britt Baker and Big Swole doesn't belong on the pre-show, that AEW was like, okay, fine, idiots, we'll move it, kind of thing. They moved it to the beginning of the card, and the match sucked. But apparently that was done a lot because of, the fan criticism. Hey, don't do that. So they listened. So AEW listens. So any mistakes they made here at All Out, they need to learn from. What happened with Matt Hardy never needs to happen again. If it does, you are going to have some serious leadership questions in terms of how your company is running. But, a company also, with live TV, live pay-per-view and stuff, you got to be able to roll with the punches when something unexpected happens. And they haven't dealt with any of this before. So every time something happens, it's going to be the first time it happens to them. Where that's not the case with, WWE, who has plans and protocols maybe a little bit more in place to handle things like that. Either way, it doesn't excuse the decisions they made, but you sure as hell hope that it's a learning experience for them. And when and if this does happen again, they handle it completely different and a lot better. So I basically didn't need to tweet all day just to get those points across. Bad show, they'll bounce back. Jim Ross, stop saying shit like that. You got to learn. And hey, if somebody ever falls and breaks their head open on the concrete like a jar of pickles, don't let them finish the match. How hard is that? But it sparked a lot of controversy, a lot of debate, a lot of arguing, a lot of angry wrestling fans at each other, a lot of fans that are very happy that AEW had a bad show. Imagine that. Imagine calling yourself a wrestling fan and being happy that a show was bad. Look at Jim Cornette. Every single week he talks about how inferior AEW is. Mud show bullshit, all those stupid little taglines that his minions just repeat over and over because they can't think for themselves. And he just repeats the same shit, puts them down. They're not worthy. It's terrible wrestling. It's the worst wrestling ever. They shouldn't even be able to call themselves wrestling. But yet, 70% of his podcast is talking about AEW, reviewing matches, reviewing segments, and shitting on it. The fans tune in just to hear that shtick. They tune in just to hear that anger, just to hear somebody crap on something. If Jim Cornette truly felt that AEW wasn't worthy, he wouldn't talk about them at all. He wouldn't talk about that at all. But unfortunately, that doesn't get you views on YouTube. The fans want to hear him shit on AEW. But according to him, they don't deserve his attention, so why is he giving it to them? Like if I keep calling him Jim Ross, if Jim Cornette really wanted to make a point, he would never mention AEW's name on his podcast. That's not how business works. He knows that anger, especially in the wrestling community, is going to get views. The louder and more obnoxious you are, the more these pent-up, angry little fucks tune in. And I think Jim Cornette is a big problem with that sort of mentality. You get these fans riled up and behind him and get to the thinking the same way as him to where they're actually repeating the same shit he says, word for word. Outlaw Mud Show and whatever the fuck else he says. Kenny Olivier and Marco Stint, or he's got like little nicknames for everybody, and oh man, his little listeners just jack the hell off to it. They love it. So I think if they're really as bad as you're making them sound like, you wouldn't talk about him. There's plenty of stuff I don't talk about because I think it's not worth it. But I don't know. It's just really weird. But my point about mentioning that was it's that type of mentality that's spawning and birthing this attitude of wrestling fans claiming they're wrestling fans. I just respect real wrestling. These are like 25-year-olds claiming they respect wrestling in the old days, when if they really truly watch that shit, there's no, they wouldn't appreciate it or understand it at all. They just pretend they do and they just say they do. So for them just to follow that feeds into that, to where you have people claiming to be a wrestling fan that wants to see another company fail, especially when we have this monster conglomerate asshole like WWE, this monopoly that's cornered and stripped every single wrestler of their individuality, and they control their lives, and they give us, crappy pay-per-views, and they're a mess internally, and we're always so worried about WWE and how out of touch they are, and Vince McMahon and everything. We've never been more desperate for another wrestling promotion than we are right now. So why would you fight that? Why would you revolt against that? Why are you so against that idea? Just because you're angry at fans on the other side. And you see that in sports, and you see that in politics. You have people just completely ignoring some really fucked up shit that people do, and they're just going to go vote for them anyway because they just want to stick it to the people on the other side. That is a dangerous way to think. And that's how you wind up with fucked up things. That's how you wind up with, the type of society we have. It's just not good. So I would stop that attitude and just look at it, just casually, look at it like logically. AEW had a bad pay-per-view. Jim Ross made a stupid comment. They should really reevaluate how they handle potential injuries during wrestling shows. And like, that's it. But to use that as such ammunition as proof that they're going to be out of business in a year. I saw that too. Oh, after what I saw it all out, I'd probably give them another year. Really? Tony Khan's dad is worth $8 billion. He is worth 8 times more than Vince McMahon. They can afford it. They'll be all right. You know, it's not a real touchy situation where, you know, they don't have a lot of funding and stuff like that, like other upstart companies or competition for WWE have come. Yes, they're not going to want to be losing money for too long before they just shut it down, but they still have the resources to be successful regardless of whether or not they give us a crappy show or not, you know? And I think they can bounce back this Wednesday. We'll see. And that's the thing about AEW. They probably know All Out sucked. Let's start making it right starting this coming Wednesday. So we'll see how they do. It's going to be a big week this week because tomorrow, Jesus, Super Tuesday 2. Yeah, Super Tuesday 2. We're supposed to crown the new NXT champion, Finn Balor and Adam Cole. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be home. I got to work, so I'm going to be watching my phone. But tomorrow's going to be slow at my restaurant, so I'll be sitting there, you know, just kind of babysitting the staff. But the day after Labor Day, we're not going to have much going in there. The summer's kind of over. Day after a holiday, people are back to school, or most people are anyway. So I'm not going to be too busy, so I will be able to eyeball my phone. I will try my best to watch the match and make comments on the match, but I won't be able to talk about it until the Winged Eagle on Saturday, unless, you know, it's a really big deal, and NXT and Dynamite on Wednesday are both off the hook, like just huge. Maybe I can find time to come up on Thursday and do a stream before I go to work or something. So maybe keep a lookout for that. But I'm hoping that not only AEW bounces back, but NXT gives us a kick-ass classic match tomorrow night for the title. It's got to be Balor, right? Balor's who we're picking. Is anybody in the chat picking Cole tomorrow? I'm not. A-Level, appreciate the $5. I'm sorry, it's okay. AEW had a bad show. Can't always be 100% all the time. AEW will improve, and the real winners are the wrestling fans. I agree. I was disappointed with the show. I was criticizing it during Twitter, but I wasn't saying like, oh, I'm never going to watch AEW again. Like, that's stupid, you know? Like, if they do this to me for a solid year, I mean, look how long WWE's been disappointing us. Everybody's still watching. You're going to give up on AEW, our only chance to have competition after one bad pay-per-view, after they've given us a lot of good ones, and they've survived and been able to still produce good TV in the face of a pandemic. To me, they deserve credit for that. And based on everything we've read lately from the WWE and all that Cameo and Twitch nonsense with the talent and stuff, I still feel way more comfortable giving AEW $50 than WWE $9.99. I don't like to give them a cent of my money. Even if I buy merchandise, I'm not even buying it on WWE Shop. I'm buying it like on eBay and stuff. Like, I don't want to give them anything. They don't deserve it for me, you know, where I feel much better about, you know, paying another company that we're trying to see grow and go on to better things, and they're not going to be perfect, and they're not going to be for everybody. It's okay to not even like AEW. I'm not saying you have to like it. Don't like it. But to take so much of your time, like Jim Cornette, who says he hates it, but then he spends over 50% of his podcast every week talking about a subject he hates. I could never do that. I would be very mentally unhealthy if I did that. You know, where I'm constantly angry about what I saw. I'd have to, you know, reevaluate what I'm talking about, or saying, okay, I'll continue my wrestling podcast, but I'm just not going to talk about AEW because it pisses me off so much. That would be the healthy thing to do, but it's not the YouTube thing to do, and Jim Cornette knows it, and that's why so much of his podcast is just filled with him shitting on AEW. It's like it's really just become the theme of it, and that's sad because Cornette's got stories for days. He can talk about so much more awesome stuff than how much he hates AEW. With all the knowledge in his brain, dude's a genius, man. Going for Balor. Football returns on Thursday. That's true. Oh, I didn't know Marty Jannetty is back on Facebook. Was he gone, or was he just not posting? I thought maybe they deleted his account or something. Wow. What's he saying? Bunch of misspelled sentence fragments. Man, Marty Jannetty. Yeah, there is nobody that's really feeling Cole. I mean, he wouldn't win that, right? I mean, he's just off that long title run. I think his deal with McAfee is probably done. I guess a couple of people mentioned to me, like, oh, McAfee could interfere. Maybe. But I almost think that match, that particular match, was like one and done, and that's probably it. And plus, I don't think anybody needs to interfere, really. I think Balor can just beat him. I think Balor needs to beat him. I'd rather not see a champion that's really kind of an interim champion as it is. I don't want to see that guy win the belt in a shady type of way. And it's going to be exciting to see Balor back as NXT champion. I really want to see the Demon wrestle. And based on how long, or depending on how long Karrion Kross is out, that could be a really fun match to stick on the horizon somewhere. The Demon versus Karrion. Holy crap! Imagine if Finn Balor can carry that belt into the beginning of the year, and fans are allowed back in some capacity by the time we get to January, and you could do like a takeover Royal Rumble match between Balor and Karrion. That would be amazing. Kross could win the title back and heading into WrestleMania, and I don't know, but that'd be two pretty intense entrances, Balor and Kross, I think, if you did that match down the road. But yeah, I'm going for Balor. It's kind of ironic. It's kind of a full circle thing for him, especially if he does win the belt, because, when he had to cough the belt up due to injury, somebody else won his, and now he's doing the same thing here to Karrion Kross. So it's got to be Balor. Probably be a really good match. I'm hoping it goes like 25 minutes or 30 minutes and just awesome bunch of near falls. But in the end, after a last shot kick out and a Panama Sunrise kick out, then you get the coup de Gracie for the win, and Balor is your new champ. That's what I hope. All the members of Retribution are all the kids of the Von Erichs. There are a couple of, Kevin's got a couple of boys, right? A couple of country boys that are pretty big, and I know they're wrestling, right? But they don't have much retribution to get on WWE. None of the Von Erichs ever worked there, except for Kerry for a short time, and he was already way deep into his demons. So as much as WWE can be blamed for, driving wrestlers into addiction and into the ground mentally with the travel and everything, their hands are clean of the Von Erichs. That's all just their lifestyle and what went on with them, with their dad in Texas and all that stuff. So Vince can at least sleep well at night knowing he had nothing to do with the Von Erich tragedies. What's the same situation with the Moolah Battle Royal? Oh, Bruce doesn't like Omega. Oh, God, I can find a million examples of wrestlers that everybody thinks are great doing the exact same thing Kenny Omega does. No, I don't really agree with that assessment at all. And I think Omega coming back now, like now that the Page thing is finally over, they might do a rematch. I doubt it. I think that's like done. Whatever that's gonna blow off on Wednesday, because there was that ultimatum when Page was leaving, or Omega. Who left? Omega or whatever. And the Bucks are like chasing him out or whatever. That thing will finally implode. And getting like Omega, like singles Omega back in AEW, because we didn't really get a chance to see that. He had that great Moxley match and some of the shit they did there, but we thought he was going to be like kind of the cornerstone, like the centerpiece of the company, and he hasn't really been that. And so whenever they want to break open that glass and pull him out and use him as a major star, I think they can. And since Moxley got the better of him in that feud previously, maybe Omega is the one to take the belt off Moxley down the road, and he'll survive his next match here with Lance Archer and probably a rematch with MJF. And maybe it's Kenny who takes the belt off of him. I'm fine with that, especially if it's the Kenny that we saw, in all those Okada matches and all the shit he did in Japan and, being the number one wrestler in the world, that type of thing. Bring him back. I'm all for it. In the Austin podcast, they glossed over his heart attack. Wow. Well, I mean, I can see that. There's like Lawler's life is insane. And it's a 1-part episode, right? Or is it 2? Like, to me, it feels like that could be a 2-parter. That could be a 3-parter. Because Lawler has so many different stages of his career, especially back to, the old days and all his time he spent in Memphis and working as a wrestler and being just the god of that territory down there, and being on the business end of things as well. And then coming into WWE to be a legendary announcer, but also still wrestle on the side and the Andy Kaufman stuff. And, his career his resume is just huge because he's done so much in and out of the ring. And he's, had so many matches and classic matches and championships that he's held and stories and everybody that he's worked with and came across throughout the years, dating all the way back to, 40 years ago now. It's just, it's insane. So I don't know how the hell they're going to cram it all in. So there's probably a few things where you're not going to really talk much about. I would assume it's going to be very heavily focused on everything prior to the late 90s. They'll probably talk about him on Raw and being an announcer there and everything with Jim Ross. But after like 2001 or something, I think you can just cut it off there. There's really nothing you need to talk about in terms of Lawler in the last 20 years. More like everything prior to that. So I'm interested to listen to that. Or watch it, I should say. I'll watch it this week. At some point. Oh, yeah, give us that match again. Kenny and Hangman versus a 10-year-old and a blow-up doll. These matches are good. Man, I watched a hell of a match between Kota Ibushi and a dummy. It was great. It was a good match. Dummy almost beat him. It's hard to stop Ibushi, though. He's real tough. He had a lot of kickouts. That dummy was whipping his ass, and he still kicked out time and time again, proving what a great fighter he is. Yeah, I thought that was cool that Bret Hart revealed the AEW title. Meant a lot to me as a fan. That's faux show. Yeah, I would like to get Andy Kaufman in the Hall of Fame before Jerry Lawler passes away. Jerry Lawler needs to be a part of that. It's ridiculous. Kaufman's not in. I don't think Cyndi Lauper is in. She's another one that's just like, what the fuck? She was a big part of all that. And there's just a couple of like really glaring omissions from the Hall of Fame. And there's a couple in there like the Drew Carey's and stuff. Like, why the fuck are they in there? Especially before, so-and-so. They did put in Mr. T, right? What about Tyson? Is Tyson in? I know T is in. I think T is in. He was a big deal too. But yeah, the Kaufman stuff's almost... I'm sure there's a reason why, maybe the family wasn't interested in it or whatever, but, all you really need is Lawler, in terms of that in order to be the inductor or the accept or present on his behalf or whatever. That's all you really need. Do they only do a celeb Hall of Fame if they're alive? I guess so. Trying to think of any other celebrities that have been put in dead. Can't think of any offhand, but there might be some. I guess not. Bob Uecker's in, right? Bob Uecker was actually pretty funny at WrestleMania 4 and 5, or 3 and 4. Tyson was in 2012. Really? Yeah, the Fridge is in. I mean, at least he had a WrestleMania match. I mean, Refrigerator Perry was in the WrestleMania 2 Battle Royal shortly after the Bears. Shortly after the Bears won the Super Bowl. So that was kind of a big deal. But still, like going to the Hall of Fame, I don't know. I don't think Cyndi Lauper is in. Unless I'm forgetting. There's really starting to run together. There's a few that I'm starting to forget if they're in or not. I don't think she is, though. Because, like, that would have been so cool to see, like, if Piper was still alive. Like, Piper should put her in, Yeah, Regis will probably be in. Yeah, he's probably going to be one that'll be put in when he's passed away. And when you look at it, though, when it comes to, like, the celebrity wing, he's another guy kind of like Kaufman that, like, what the hell took so long for him? Like, even though he was only at, I believe, one WrestleMania 7, what his talk show did for wrestling was enormous. I mean, I remember as a kid growing up, my mom loved that Regis and Kathy Lee show. How old do you think fucking Cody is now? She never shut the hell up about that kid when he was born. And he would have all the wrestlers on throughout the 80s. And I remember my mom would always tell me, like, she would watch the show, and what they must have done is probably announce who the next day's guests are going to be. Because whenever she knew about it, she would I would usually be at school, during the week, and she would like tape it for me. So I would see, The Undertaker or Hulk Hogan or The Ultimate Warrior or somebody like that on there throughout the years. And he was a big wrestling fan. He had everybody, even the Attitude Era, all the way up to Austin and all those guys. So he was a big fan, and he helped do a lot, bringing them on the show and help promoting whatever pay-per-view or whatever they're up to. You can make a case for Arsenio Hall. Arsenio Hall's another guy that had a lot of wrestlers on in the 80s. Hogan and Savage and Rick Rude was on the show, and Beefcake might have been, maybe $1 Million Man. He had some wrestlers on the show as well. So I think Philbin is a guy that should be should have already been in prior to him passing away. And it's sad, too, because another guy at WrestleMania 7 with Regis Philbin was Alex Trebek, who we know is not doing well and is battling cancer, and he probably doesn't have long to go either. I don't think he's really WWE Hall of Fame worthy, but he's one of my favorite people that's like ever lived. I'm a big Alex Trebek fan. I need to get myself an Alex Trebek shirt. Actually, I've been meaning to do that for years. Yeah, Fridge and Stud had a mini feud. Pete Rose is in, isn't he? Pete Rose is in. Maybe not. Maybe he's not. Okay, Pete Rose. No, Pete Rose is in. Kane put him in. Oh, you know what's interesting about that? I remember when Pete Rose went in. He went in the 2004 class, I think, because that was when they brought back the Hall of Fame for the first time after all those years, and they really loaded it up. That was the crazy year. That was Bobby Heenan. I think even Big John Studd, Pete Rose, Superstar Billy Graham, Slaughter, Jesse, Harley Race, Bobby Heenan, maybe not Harley, maybe Harley put in Heenan. Basically, it's a loaded class. And I remember when it happened, they taped it during WrestleMania 20 weekend, and I somehow got the audio. I don't remember how. I somehow got the audio to Pete Rose's speech only. Or not Pete Rose's speech, Pete Rose's induction only. And Kane put him in. Because Kane, of course, tombstoned him and had that feud with him throughout all those WrestleManias. And I just remember a line where Kane was like, I remember listening to the audio, and Kane was reading off stats. And then he's like, oh, I just realized I'm reading stats for the wrong Hall of Fame. You know, I just thought that was kind of a cool line because a lot of people feel Pete Rose should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I believe that too. It's ridiculous that he's not. I know he bet, but come on. Oh, yeah, Heenan said he got caught betting on wrestling, yeah. And that's still my favorite speech of all time, Bobby Heenan's, because he'd struggled to speak and everything, so that's what just made it so much better, and all the health problems he had, just to watch him have a good time and be happy up there. And you got a little glimpse of the old Bobby Heenan, even though he, didn't resemble himself. He was weakened. He was a lot smaller, and he lost a lot of weight, and he was battling the multiple throat surgeries and everything he had to endure and just go through, and the hell he had to live with that cancer. We got a little glimpse of what he used to be in that, and it was like, to me, that was like my personal goodbye to Bobby Heenan, because after that, it was downhill quickly for him. And he did a couple of other things. He made some cameos and DVDs. I know he was on the Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior one where he talked a little bit, but really after that, he was pretty much done and out of the spotlight, and aside from like wrestling conventions. And by then, he couldn't even speak at all. So that was like kind of our last look at Bobby Heenan. I think that's kind of why that one stands out to me as being one of the best, or my personal favorite, because that was it. Oh, yeah, Valentine and Tito, Jesse, Heenan, Slaughter. Yeah, so I know Harley was there. I just thought maybe he was inducting someone, but no, he was being inducted. Yeah, they had to make up for lost time because they did the Hall of Fame, and I think they started at 93 with Andre, and then in 94, and they might have done one in 95, and then it was done for like 10 years. And they brought it back in 04 and made up a lot of time. And then in the next one, the following year, that was like the Piper, Hogan, and Sheik year, right? Like, that's a lot of people going in. Mean Gene might have gone in that year as well. So yeah, they were trying to load up the 80s there. You talk about, could you imagine a class like that now, like we saw in 2004 or 5? That's nuts. And the year after that was like Brett and Eddie, maybe Bockwinkel. I forgot who 06 was, but there was some good stuff there too. Your friend of yours is a Reds fan. He was hoping every year Rose would get his revenge on Kane. It was never going to happen. Oh yeah, Morocco. He's in, isn't he? Morocco's in. No, Cornette's not in the Hall of Fame. He's another guy, though, that should be in there, but I think he's going to burn his own bridge there. He came in to do a couple things. He inducted the Rock and Roll, right, in the Hall of Fame a couple years ago. He did the Table for Three with Bischoff and somebody else. So he was there, but I just don't know now. It's like WWE just doesn't want to draw attention to him. He's always running his mouth. He's always getting himself into trouble. If he was just a little bit more like chill, I'm sure they'd have no problem putting him in the Hall of Fame, because he is a Hall of Fame manager, easily. He should have been in the Hall of Fame a long time ago. They should have put him in the Hall of Fame before he went nuts. That way it wouldn't matter. Oh, yeah. Yeah. '05 was very heavily featured around the WrestleMania 1 because you had Piper and Orndorff, Hogan, and Sheik and Nikolai, who won tag belts at that show, Jimmy Hart, and Ace Orton. Snuka went in prior to all that. I think Snuka went in. Oh, Snuka went. No, they did it in 96. That's right. They did it in 96 because it was the Survivor Series weekend at Madison Square Garden. They did another Hall of Fame. They put Snuka in and some other people, probably Arnold Skolin or whoever else. And Snuka was a surprise entrant at the Survivor Series that year. Teamed up with, I forgot who else or who he was with now. Yeah, Stud in 2000. Yeah, I remember Stud because I remember his kid and accepted. I remember WCW did something for Stud too in like 95. They did a little mini Hall of Fame thing. And Stud had just passed away, I think, and they had his son there. It was on one of their pay-per-views, probably Slamboree or something, one of those legend shows or whatever. But I remember WCW doing a little something for John Studd. Oh my God, Cornette's Dairy Queen incident. Just losing his shit. Yeah, Jericho, I think, famously recorded that. He was in the car. Oh, yeah, Sherry went in '06. That's right. She had a great speech. I loved hers. She passed away shortly after that as well. So, yeah, we'll see what happens this year with the Hall of Fame. If they're just going to do the class at this year's WrestleMania, don't know. Well, they don't know what they're going to do there. My plans for WrestleMania are starting to get set. I'm really starting to hope, as sick as this sounds, I'm hoping it's not here. Because now, my plan before the COVID was, WrestleMania in LA, it's going to be great when it comes here. We're going to do the whole weekend, the whole shebang. But then I find out that it's coinciding with a family trip to Hawaii. We go every other year, or my family goes every year. I go every other year because we have a timeshare there. Well, next year, it just so happens that they're all leaving and we're all supposed to be there on the Saturday before WrestleMania. So instead, I'm going to be leaving the Monday after WrestleMania, which means I'm going to be pretty much missing the post-WrestleMania Monday Night Raw. I'm not going to be here to live stream it or anything. But if WrestleMania is in LA, I'm going to probably go to it, but then I won't be able to do a live stream. I won't be able to do a review because I'm going to have to drive home from LA here to San Diego, pack my shit up, and I got to be on a plane 8 o'clock the next morning after WrestleMania. So in a way, I'm kind of hoping it's not going to be here and they put it in Tampa, or it's just not going to be allowed to be here for some reason. And they keep it in Florida, and then I can watch it and do a normal review of it and then hop on the plane and not be too tired. Otherwise, it's going to be a crazy weekend. So I don't know how WrestleMania is going to work out for me this year. It's kind of a shame that it just absolutely had to coincide, but I had to make a decision. I'm like, I can't wait around for them to figure out if it's going to be here or not. I was like, all right, I'm going to make myself available for WrestleMania night, but not the whole weekend, where if it was here, I'd probably be doing everything. I do the Hall of Fame, I do TakeOver, I do WrestleMania, the night after Raw, stay in LA the whole time, do live streams from my hotel room. But unfortunately, COVID is going to fuck all that up again, but we'll see. If it does turn out to be here, I'm sure there will be things during the weekend, like on Saturday, that I can get involved with, and, maybe we can do YouTube meetups or whatever, but part of me just secretly hopes that everything's got to remain in Florida for the next, 6-7 months, and it won't be an issue. We'll see. Makes me nervous, though, about next year's WrestleMania. Yeah, don't even get me started about Elizabeth in the Hall of Fame. That is criminal. That she should have gone in my opinion, she should have gone in the 2004 class. That might have been a little bit early because she had just died in '03, but I think she should have gone in there. I mean, Savage wasn't in yet, so that would have been hard to do. There was probably still bad blood with Savage back in those days. But, she's one of the ones that I feel like should have been there, like almost right from the start. Or at least maybe in '05, or whatever. But I guess they probably weren't going to put her in, until Savage was in. And now that Savage is in, you absolutely should do Elizabeth. It's ridiculous that she's not in there. Trying to think, in today's day and age, if Miss Elizabeth were to go into the Hall of Fame, who would induct her? Would it be somebody from her past, or would it be like some female wrestling personality that she paved the way for? I don't know. Valets are somewhat a thing of the past. I can't see like Zelina doing it or anything. So I don't know who would even induct her. There might have to be a Vince or somebody like that. I don't know. Maybe a Ric Flair. I don't know about Punk. We're way off from CM Punk being in the Hall of Fame. And you know what? A guy like Punk, I don't think he gives a shit if he's in the Hall of Fame or not. No, Luger cannot induct her. Absolutely not. Not with the situation of her death and stuff. But yeah, CM Punk, I'm sure doesn't care if he's in the Hall of Fame or not. He's like, put me in, don't put me in. I let go give two shits and I'll go right on with my life. He, much like Rob Van Dam, I don't think that's ever going to matter to someone like him. It's just not their style. No, Lex Luger will not induct Miss Elizabeth. That would never happen. Not in a million years. Stephanie, I could see Stephanie, because she was somebody that would know Elizabeth and remember her from back in those days. And plus, she hooked up with her husband. No, I'm kidding. But she might have. Stephanie would be an interesting one considering that very popular rumor that's been going around for the past 20 years regarding Stephanie and Randy Savage. I would almost say if George Steele was still alive, he'd be a good one. He loved her, treated her well. Ricky Steamboat, he would do a great induction for Miss Elizabeth, even though they didn't really interact much. He had a lot of wars with Randy Savage when she was with him. Steamboat might be a good one. I mean, we've heard that. I don't know if is that confirmed? I mean, we've heard the 2020 Hall of Fame induction will likely happen at 37. I've heard no confirmation from WWE's mouth about this, but yeah, likely that's what they're going to have to do there. Obviously. Oh, Hulk Hogan. Yeah, I didn't think about Hulk. Well, I guess if you inducted Savage, something about that. Even though Hogan makes a lot of sense, she was his manager. It's just anytime he's up there talking about anything, it just makes me uncomfortable now. That Macho Man thing was ridiculous. Can't believe he inducted him. Yeah, I don't know. I think if Lex Luger didn't have some of the things, how Weezy attached to him and some of the problems with his personal life and some of his issues with WWE in the past, based on just like his resume alone, yeah, Hall of Fame for sure. There's people who've done a lot less than Luger have been in the Hall of Fame, but he's a guy that was former WCW champion. He was almost a WWE champion. He was almost and sort of the top guy in both promotions at one point in his life. I can see him going in for sure. Yeah, so that's probably the best ones. It's probably going to be Hogan, Flair, Stephanie, Steamboat, someone like that. Oh, yeah, and Rick Martel's another one, Mike Witt, who is long overdue. I've been talking about him for years. Because she wasn't with too many wrestlers. I mean, she just managed Hogan, Flair, Savage, and that was kind of it. And Lex, of course, but she won't be with him. I can't see Iron Sheik inducting her, although I would pay to see that. I haven't watched that induction speech in a while. I loved his. That was 05 too, right? And he just kept talking, and they tried to play the music, and he kept coming back to the mic. I would just like it to say. He just kept saying that. And the crowd, they kept panning to the audience, and like the wrestlers were just laughing their asses off. If you want a good laugh, watch the Sheiks. And I just like it to say. Oh my God. He is the best. I wish I could do a Sheik accent because he was awesome. Jimmy Hart. Maybe. I can see, like, at that point, somebody like that, it doesn't really matter what their history is with them. Just somebody that really knows them, worked with them, has stories to tell. And Jimmy Hart probably did. I mean, Macho's feud with Honky lasted a while. Jimmy was right in the middle of that. So was Elizabeth. Honky Tonk Man shoved her down on Saturday Night's Main Event. And Jimmy was all mixed up in that. Even Bret Hart or somebody like that, I think could put in. Bret has plenty of Miss Elizabeth stories. He's always spoke very kindly of her. So. Yeah, I mean, Elizabeth is a grown woman. She makes her own decisions. I always just thought she was an angel. And, when you hear about stuff, it was just disappointing to hear that, she got herself mixed up in drugs. And I think a lot of people just automatically blamed Luger. And it sucks, and he does deserve a little bit of blame and stuff for what happened, but at the same time, she is her own person, she is a grown adult, and she made her own decisions. He didn't force these pills down her throat, but maybe influenced her or led her down a life that she shouldn't be in, and she got caught up in it, whatever the story is, we are responsible for each other's actions. But, when you hear something like that, Elizabeth never came across that way as somebody that would have like drug problems or be hooked on drugs or, take too many to where they actually die from it. And she was, what's scary about Miss Elizabeth, she died at the same age that I am right now. And that's just awful. Amazing that she would be about 60 today. God damn. Yeah, that sucks, man. Still one of the sadder deaths. Lanny Poffo, I don't know about Lanny. He'd be another one that you could at least make a case for because, his brother was married to her. So Lanny is weird. Lanny is a very weird person. Yeah, Nancy, unfortunately, is not going to go in either. The only way Nancy goes in is if they induct her in like a group, a woman and what she contributed or whatever, because technically that wouldn't be so bad, but anything to keep the headlines away from the Benoit family, I'm sure, is what WWE wants. Yeah, anywho. Well, anyway, I'm going to get out of here. It's been streaming for about 2 hours despite kind of an interesting Raw tonight, so I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. We have a pretty good audience in here that I'm going to be leaving hanging, so before you go, can you smash that thumbs up? Because the audience is good, but the likes suck. So hook me up with a few likes, and I'd appreciate it. And like I said, follow me on Twitter, and maybe if you want to throw some updates my way tomorrow, I'm going to be very curious and trying my best to eyeball the NXT title match with Finn Balor taking on Adam Cole. If you guys want to shoot updates my way tomorrow on Twitter, please do that. I'll be doing the same thing on Wednesday for Dynamite. And if we see anything earth-shattering happen, I'll do my best to be up here Wednesday or Thursday afternoon for a quick 30-minute stream or something. We'll talk about it. But otherwise, likely the next time you will see me is Saturday night for a special time on the Winged Eagle podcast, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific here in the States. Anybody else, anywhere else in the world, going to have to do the math on that. So anyway, you guys have an excellent rest of your night. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good rest of your holiday, what's left of it. And I will talk to everyone in just a few days. Y'all be cool. Peace.